This is Orlando Sentinel Now.
Hello, it's Tuesday, September 28th. Rich Pope here with Ryan Gillespie and Scott Maxwell. And today they have our topics. We're going to talk about vaccinations, the ongoing debate, and it seems like it's a good one. We're going to find out more about that one. Let's get into it. Here we go with Ryan Gillespie, and we're going to talk about Orange County. And it seems like the state of Florida could impose fines on Orange County for making mandates for county employees. Seems like this could be a court battle, Ryan.
Yeah, Jerry Deming certainly thinks so. We had kind of been wondering what was ever going to come of this. A couple of weeks ago, the governor announced his intention to fine local governments who put these vaccine mandates in place for their staff. He actually had said at the time up to like $5,000 per violation. So if you employ, thousands of people, the money can add up really quick. And we hadn't really heard anything since then. I had asked the state, really got no answer. And then Friday at, I guess, 4:52 p.m., Jerry Deming said he heard from the DeSantis administration, from an official with the Florida Department of Health, asking some questions about his vaccine mandate and basically threatening that fines would be forthcoming.
Clearly, this has some political overtones. And if I were a resident of Orange County, I'd be really concerned that somehow, the state, the governor, would try to punish Orange County in any way. After all, the fines will be paid by the county, taxpayer dollars. They wouldn't be paid by me, so this isn't about me necessarily. But as the mayor of the county, the CEO of the county, I'm responsible for all county operations. And while we're fighting through this pandemic, my goal is to keep our citizens safe.
Yeah, and there's still some things being worked out as far as between unions and the firefighters right now. How does that play into this?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much worked out at this point. The firefighter union with the county was pretty adamant that they were not going to agree to this vaccine mandate. The way that Jerry Demings had been talking about this over the last month or two since he put this into place was that employees who do not comply with the mandate, which he called a lawful order, would be subject to the county's progressive discipline. Well, last week he said that would now be capped at a letter of reprimand, which many took as letting these firefighters off the hook, essentially, for the mandate. The Demings administration kind of defended it a little bit yesterday, saying that they never intended to fire people and that they were trying to incentivize people to get vaccinated, and that the letter of reprimand is a substantial discipline because it could disqualify an employee from a future promotion and things like that. It's essentially a letter in your file. So I guess that kind of is open to interpretation depending on how you see things.
Right. As far as the mandates for the county, that goes into effect October 1st. What do the numbers look like right now?
If you look at the vaccination rates of county employees, mandating them certainly appears to have worked. Something like 84% of county employees are vaccinated at this point. The largest chunk of employees who are unvaccinated, I believe, are firefighters. It's kind of ambiguous because the mandate is reliant on an employee providing their vaccination status. So it's unclear how many firefighters are actually unvaccinated, but there are several hundred who have not reported their status. So we can imply that a good chunk of those are not vaccinated, but some of them also maybe and just didn't report it out of solidarity.
Right. As far as this state coming back with fines, it's just this ongoing, it seems like, push-pull between the state, local governments about mask mandates and vaccinations. And it just seems like it's been ongoing. And in these large population areas, like the major cities, seem to be the ones that are the biggest areas that are using these kind of mandates. And I'm curious how this plays out, because it just seems like this ongoing battle.
If I had to venture a guess, it's going to continue to be ongoing. There's certainly political differences here, and just not to put Scott on the spot, I know he's here. I don't know if he has any thoughts on it, but it appears that Ron DeSantis and Jerry Demings are never going to get along. They see things differently fundamentally. If these fines play out the way that this letter appears that they're going to, it's going to be a substantial fine. You can't fine somebody $5,000 per violation, which is thousands of employees theoretically. You get into the millions very quick when you do that math.
Right.
Who knows if it ever comes to pass, but certainly it appears it's going to end up in a courtroom. And if I had to guess, this won't be the last public disagreement we see between the governor and the mayor.
Yeah, well, you mentioned putting Scott on the hook, and I'm actually going to go ahead and do that because actually, his next subject that we're going to talk about has to do with that. And Scott, I'm going to come to you, and it just seems to be this ongoing back and forth between individuals of vaccination, no vaccination. And it seems like Florida politicians have drawn a line in some stances, and it seems like it's going even further at this point right now.
That is right, and that's what I'm writing about today. It might not surprise most of our viewers to know that there are a number of leaders in Florida, particularly Florida Republicans, who are opposed to vaccine mandates when it comes to COVID. However, what I think might surprise them is that there are now some leaders who are talking about maybe being opposed to vaccines for things that have been mandated for decades. Things like measles and mumps, maybe even polio. And the reason that might surprise you is because, I don't know, it's not 1932 anymore. And we haven't been, we've been mandating these things and have, for all intents and purposes, eradicated a lot of these diseases thanks to these vaccine mandates. But just last week, Senator Manny Diaz out of South Florida, he's a very influential Republican in both health and educational manners, Florida Politics reported that he thought it might be time to review those mandates they wrote in place for such illnesses as mumps and measles. And that prompted a major firestorm from people just wondering if we were going back to the Stone Ages, like Florida wants to party like it's 1899. And as soon as there was a backlash, then Manny Diaz came out the next day and said he didn't want to review them. So I guess we have to conclude that nobody dislikes what Manny Diaz has to say more than Manny Diaz. But it's left people with an impression that there may be an even darker road that we're getting ready to go down.
Right, and this road, it seems like COVID has opened this up. Like a year and a half ago, we never would have thought we'd be battling over vaccinations, and here we are. And it just seems like this ongoing battle that I think it's exhausting, I would say.
It is, and really, vaccines and even vaccine mandates are not only sort of well established in this country and long upheld as something that's legal according to the courts and the Constitution, but there's something that started in this country when this country started. George Washington mandated vaccines for smallpox. However, we didn't have Twitter, Instagram, and Parler back when Washington was trying to cross the Delaware. And so I'm convinced things might have been different. And part of the reason I think that I don't completely trust Manny Diaz and some of these other politicians who say, okay, we're okay with these current mandates, is one of the distinctions that Diaz says, is he said he thinks there's this distinction between something that is proven to work and doesn't have any side effects. I presume we're left, Diaz didn't answer any questions for me, we're left to think that COVID has vaccine side effects while other vaccines do not. That's just baloney. That's absolute malarkey. Every vaccine, virtually every medicine that has ever been invented, there are some, often, usually rare side effects. I mean, polio, a side effect can be extreme drowsiness, fainting, seizures, fever, body aches, and vomiting. The chickenpox vaccine, there can be fever and stiffness in joints. If you want to really freak yourself out, Rich, go check out WebMD for aspirin. You can get rare side effects like anemia, kidney inflammation. If you read all this stuff and get sucked into the vortex, you may never take another aspirin again. The point is, side effects are nothing new, but because of this tyranny of the anecdote and Nicki Minaj's cousin's friends, all of a sudden these silly examples are being tossed around, or rare examples, I should say, as if they're the sort of the Bible. And now we're hearing them from leaders in the Florida legislature.
Yeah, I have to put this out there because I know you as someone that tends to be like, let individuals decide what they want to do, like hands off. But that seems to be the argument. It's like, it's my body. I get to decide this. You guys shouldn't tell me otherwise. It seems to be a rather reasonable argument.
I think there is an expression that's pretty well worn that says, your freedom to swing your fist stops at my nose. And what that means is you do have freedom to do whatever you want as long as it doesn't impact others. It's the same reason we have laws against drunk driving. And in this case, you could pass along potentially deadly or paralyzing disease to someone else. And let's not forget, there are people, we're talking about schools in this case, there are people who cannot get the vaccine because of allergic reactions. So in this case, Manny Diaz says he believes in freedom. That's the sort of the popular argument here. Well, let's take it to its extension. So you have the freedom to send maybe your kid without a vaccine for polio. You have the freedom to maybe give polio to another child that can't get the vaccine. And I guess you have the freedom to end up paralyzing, crippling, or killing that child. I think most people have accepted for the past decades, I think since the 70s, that when it comes to hurting other people, when it comes to illnesses, we're not generally in favor of that.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Scott. You can read his column shortly on OrlandoSentinel.com. Debate's probably not over, as we know. This one's ongoing. Of course, stay with us on OrlandoSentinel.com. We're going to go ahead and push pause for today. Also want to point out, become a subscriber. Go to OrlandoSentinel.com/subscribe and go ahead and support us. We really do appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and call it quits. Until next time, I'm Rich, Ryan, and Scott. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Watch Orlando Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on OrlandoSentinel.com.